He had to question my judgment. Well, the people of New York voted for me twice to be their senator from New York, and Obama trusted my judgment enough to ask me to be Secretary of State for the United States about even his core issue, breaking up the banks. When asked, he could not explain how that would be done. He could not answer about Afghanistan, about Israel, about counterterrorism, except to say if he'd had some paper in front of him, maybe he could.
And guarantee health care to all people is a right. My view.
Thank you, Senator. Secretary.
Well, make no mistake about it. This is not just an attack on me. It's an attack on President Obama. President Obama, you know, let me tell you why. You may not like the answer, but I'll tell you why. This is a phony attack that is designed to raise questions when there is no evidence or support to undergird the insinuations that he is putting forward.
Would you call on regulators to start the process of breaking up these banks?
No bank is too big to fail. No executive too powerful to jail. I have been talking about what we should be doing under Dodd-Frank. I'm glad that Senator Sanders is now joining in talking about Dodd-Frank. And I will appoint regulators who are tough enough and ready enough to break up any bank that fails the test under Dodd-Frank. I love being in Brooklyn. This is great.
If there's nothing in those speeches that you think would change voters' minds, why not just release the transcripts and put this whole issue?
There isn't an issue. When I was in public service serving as the senator from New York, I did stand up to the banks. I did make it clear that their behavior would not be excused. I'm the only one on this stage who did not vote to deregulate swaps and derivatives as Senator Sanders did, which led to a lot of the problems that we had with Lehman Brothers.
And the question was about the transcripts of the speeches to Goldman Sachs.
There are certain expectations when you run for president. This is a new one. And I've said, if everybody agrees to do it, because there are speeches for money on the other side, I know that. But I will tell you this, there is
your Democratic opponent and many Democratic voters who want to see those transcripts. It's not about the Republicans.
When everybody does it, okay, I will do it. But let's set and expect the same standard on tax returns. Everybody does it. I have supported the fight for 15.
I am sure a lot of people are very surprised to learn that you supported raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour.
No, wait a minute. Come on. I have stood on the debate stage with Senator Sanders 8 prior times. I have said the exact same
Senator,
thing.
please.
If we can raise it to 15 in New York or Los Angeles or Seattle. I have said from the very beginning that I supported the fight for 15. I supported those on the front lines of the fight for... It happens to be true. I also...
Only 1.2% of the guns recovered in New York in 2014 were from Vermont. Are you seriously blaming Vermont?
No, of course not. Of course not. This is a serious difference between us. And what I want to start by saying, it's not a laughing matter. 90 people on average a day are killed or commit suicide or die in accidents from guns, a combat weapon, killing on the battlefield. He said they didn't deserve their day in court. I could not disagree more. And finally, this is the only industry that has this kind of special protection. We hear a lot from...
But why did you put out that statement blaming Vermont and its gun policy for some of the deaths by guns in New York?
Well, the facts are that most of the guns that end up committing crimes in New York come from out of state. They come from the states that don't have the kind of serious efforts to control guns that we do in New York. But let me say this. In 1988, as we've heard on every debate occasion, Senator Sanders did run for the Congress, and he lost to the NRA. He voted against the Brady Bill 5 times because it had waiting periods in it. Thankfully, enough people finally voted for it.
Including a tax on carbon, something I don't believe Secretary
Please go ahead and respond.
I worked with President Obama to bring China and India to the table for the very first time. And I was very proud that President Obama and America led the way to the agreement that was finally reached in Paris with 195 nations committing to take steps to actually make a difference in climate change. And I was surprised and disappointed when Senator Sanders attacked the agreement, said it was not enough, it didn't go far enough. You know, at some point, putting together 195 countries, I know a little bit about that, was a major accomplishment. And our president led the effort to protect our world. And he deserves our appreciation, not our criticism.
Let us support a tax on carbon, not Secretary.
Go ahead and respond.
A little bewildered about how to respond when you have an agreement which gives you the framework to actually take the action that would have only been able to take. And, you know, I'm getting a little bit concerned here because, you know, I really believe that the president has done an incredible job against great odds and deserves to be supported. Now, it's easy to diagnose the problem. It's harder to do something about the problem.
Thank you, Secretary.
And I would ask you to respond. Are you in favor of a tax on carbon?
You know, I have laid out a set of actions that build on what President Obama was able to accomplish, building on the Clean Power Plan, which is currently under attack. I don't take a backseat to your legislation that you've introduced that you haven't been able to get passed. I want to do what we can do to actually make progress in dealing with the crisis. That's exactly what I have proposed.
Okay, thank you,
and
Secretary.
my approach, I think, is going to get us there faster.
Secretary Clinton did not answer one simple question. Are you for a tax on carbon or not? is we didn't think thoroughly about what happens the day after you get rid of these dictators. Regime change often has unintended consequences. In Iraq and in Libya right now, where ISIS has a very dangerous foothold.
There was a vote in the Senate as to whether or not the United States should support the efforts by the Libyan people to protect themselves against the threats, the genocidal threats coming from Gaddafi, and whether we should go to the United Nations to seek Security Council support. Senator Sanders voted for that. And that's exactly what we did.
No,
we went to the United Nations. Yes, he did. We went to
But please do not confuse that with your active effort for regime change without contemplating what happened the day after.
Provide support for our European and Arab allies and partners. The decision was the president's. Did I do the due diligence? Did I talk to everybody I could talk to? Did I visit every capital and then report back to the president? Yes, I did. That's what a Secretary of State does. But at the end of the day, those are the decisions that are made by the president.
That is very different from getting actively involved to overthrow and bring about regime change without fully understanding what the consequence of that.
Do you agree with Senator Sanders that Israel overreacts to Palestinian attacks and that in order for there to be peace between Israel and the Palestinians, Israel must, quote, end its disproportionate responses?
I negotiated the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas in November of 2012. I did it in concert with, and I understand that there's always second guessing anytime there is a war. It also does not mean that we should not continue to do everything we can to try to reach a two-state solution, which would give the Palestinians the rights, and just let me finish, the rights and the autonomy that they deserve. And let me say this, if Yasser Arafat had agreed with my husband at years already.
Go ahead, Senator.
Was their response disproportionate? I believe that it was. You have not answered that.
Well, I will certainly be willing to answer it. I think I did answer it by saying that, of course, there have to be precautions taken. But even the most independent analyst will say the way that Hamas places its weapons, the way that it often has, Hamas took over Gaza. So instead of having a thriving economy with the kind of opportunities that the children of the Palestinians deserve, we have a terrorist haven that is getting more and more rockets shipped in from Iran and elsewhere. You know, again, describing the problem is a lot easier than trying to solve it. And I have been involved, both as First Lady with my husband's efforts, as a senator supporting the efforts that even the Bush administration, Netanyahu, Abbas, George Mitchell, and me, 3 long meetings. And I was absolutely focused on what was fair and right for the Palestinians. Continue to make progress and get an agreement that will be fair both to the Israelis and the Palestinians.
Final word, Senator.
Well,
Secretary.
You know, I have spoken about and written, individual leader is always right. But it is a difficult position if you are, from whatever perspective, trying to urge something that I've worked on for 25 years. Before there was something called Obamacare, there was something called Hillary Care, and a working woman on Medicaid who already has health insurance would be expected to pay about $2,300. The same for free college. The free college offer, you know, my late father said, if somebody promises you something for free, read the fine print. You read the fine print, and here's what it says.
Yes or no, would you lift the cap?
I have said repeatedly, Wolf, I am going to make the wealthy pay into Social Security to extend the Social Security Trust Fund. That is one way. If that is the way that we pursue, I will follow that. But there are other ways. We should be looking at taxing passive income by wealthy people. I have said from the very beginning, we're going to protect Social Security. I was one of the leaders in the fight against Bush when he was trying to privatize Social Security. But we also, in addition to extending the trust fund, which I am absolutely determined to do, we've got to help people who are not being taken care of now. And because Social Security started in the 1930s, a lot of women have been left out and left behind. And it's time that we provide more benefits for widows, divorcees, for caregivers, for women who deserve more from the Social Security system. And that will be my highest priority.
Go ahead, Senator.
Interesting comment, but you didn't answer the question.
I did. If that's the way. Yes, I did.
Can I answer?
I did answer.
Please.
Well, don't put words into my mouth and say something that's not accurate.
All right. It wasn't my idea. It was Barack Obama's idea. He called for lifting the cap and starting at 250 and going on up. What's wrong with that? Are you prepared to support it?
I have supported it. You know, we are in vigorous agreement here, Senator. I think it's important to point out that, you know, we're having a discussion about the best way to raise money from wealthy people to extend the Social Security Trust Fund. Think about what the other side wants to do. They're calling Social Security a Ponzi scheme. They still want to privatize it. In fact, their whole idea is to turn over the Social Security Trust Fund at the bottom.
Senator, go ahead.
Campaign of challenging. If I hear you correctly, Madam Secretary, you are now coming out finally in favor of lifting the cap on taxable income and extending and expanding Social Security. If that is the case, welcome on board. I'm glad you're here.
As he said, I've said the same thing for years. I didn't say anything different tonight. We are going to extend the Social Security Trust Fund. There is still something called Congress. Now, I happen to support Democrats, and I want to get Democrats to take back the majority in the United States Senate. So a lot of what they're talking about can actually be implemented when I am president.
I got to admit, maybe I'm a little bit confused. Are you or are you not supporting legislation to lift the cap on taxable income and extend Social Security for 58 years and increase benefits? Yes or no?
I have said yes. We are going to pick the best way, or combination.
Please clap.
Or a combination of ways. You know, it's always a little bit challenging because, you know, if Senator Sanders doesn't agree with how you are approaching something, then you are a member of the establishment.